right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dispersing the Fog. This is episode 25. We're at the quarter century mark, Paul. We're doing pretty good here. This is August 24th, 2025. Almost a whole bunch of 25s in there. How are things going, Paul?
Well, it's the third week of August. And what is the third week of August? Tomato season. This is the
Ooh.
72 hours where you get to eat all the tomatoes before they go bad.
Oh,
You know,
yeah. Yeah.
Sharon, you know what I call these?
What's that?
Sharon's $500 tomatoes because she loves them and does all kinds of stuff with them and makes them beautiful. They taste great, but then they're gone.
Well, remember the Seinfeld reference to that the tomatoes are great, but you can never find a good one. That's why they never caught on as a hand fruit, you know? Well, that's good.
Yeah,
It's a good
no,
time of
these are
year.
these are very good tomatoes. These are very good tomatoes, but being what they are, they all come at once, no matter what you do, and then you got to eat them like as much as you can and gone. 72 hours a week. I don't know.
Well, it's you make the most out of the 72 hours or however much you get out of it. It's that time of year though, right? You get the tomatoes. Soon it'll be blueberries, and everybody will be picking blueberries and freezing them for
Yeah.
the detoxifying effects throughout the winter. The other thing, Paul, it's sort of starting into hurricane season. Did you get any effects from Hurricane Erin down your way?
Not a thing. It's
No, it
so
was all this
dry.
hype.
It's so dry. No rain.
No rain still. We're still under a forest ban here in Nova Scotia. And the hype all week of Hurricane Erin is coming up the coast, and every morning in the weather report, oh my, like it's such a overhyped thing, these weather reports. I did get out yesterday for some paddle boarding in the big waves. We did get some ocean waves here. It knocked me off the paddleboard a few times, so that was fun. But we've got
I'll leave that to you. That's not my sport.
oh man, yeah, it was pretty fun. You got to get out in the ocean a little bit when it's. This is also the few weeks when the ocean's warm enough to enter here in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, little known fact, that area around Antigonish
Yeah,
has some of the warmest waters in the north at this time of year, doesn't it?
it's really good. Like the whole interior, like the Atlantic coast side, will be 18, 19 degrees Celsius in the in the water, whereas in the Northumberland side, Pictou on the southern side of PEI, you could be 22, 23 degrees. Very pleasant. So.
I call that cold.
That's I call that unfair because we're closer to the coast. Paul, we got lots of stories to get to, and we have a great guest coming up here, Claude Chapados, who's got some interesting things to say about undercover work, and we're going to connect some of that back to the Nova Scotia mass shootings and some of the analysis that went into that. But before we welcome Claude, we have a number of stories this week, some that we've been following and some that are new and fresh. I want to get to Catherine Gilliford, and there's some disturbing. Well, there's a lot going on with that story. We'll get to do some updates first on the Jack and Lilly Sullivan missing children story here in Nova Scotia. There's a Hamilton police officer suspended, part of this Second Sons extremist group that is becoming an increasing concern, I think, across the country. And a couple of others, nurse in British Columbia, Amy Hamm, suspended for a month and fined $94,000 for some comments that she made. Talk about that. And a homeowner in Ontario whose home was invaded has been charged with assault. So get into some of that too, and maybe some other stories as we move along. Um, so, Paul, maybe just start with the Jack and Lily Sullivan story there. There was an update this week. There was some some media entities, the CBC, Globe and Mail, I think Global News as well, had applied to get some search warrant documents that the police had filed with the courts. And not a ton of new revelations from these, Paul. Some, though. Looks like everybody did lie detector tests. The two biological parents, the stepdad, the step grandmother, others. and there was a blanket, a pink blanket that was found with belonging to the daughter, Lily. Uh, the biggest, I guess, the headline seems to have been that the police don't think that there's criminal involvement here. Is that your read of things?
I don't know. I mean, how can you tell what's going on in this story? I mean, the RCMP are notoriously bad at investigating. And who knows if they're telling the truth or not telling the truth, if this is some sort of tactic to flush things out by saying there is no criminal investigation. They're just, they may be playing the audience. I don't know. The story just is confounding.
You
The
wonder if they're
kids are
trying to,
missing. They're saying the parents didn't do it. And in that story, they're now talking about, well, somebody saw them going into a car with a woman with curly hair or something like that.
like, I thought that was the headline. I saw that too, Paul. I was like, isn't this
Huh.
the most important detail that we've heard throughout this entire time? So there was Natasha Haywood, don't know Natasha Haywood, says she saw the two kids walking north towards Westville, uh, in Pictou County, got into a tan or gold sedan, seemed to, have no difficulty getting into it. Now, she did get the ages wrong or estimated them incorrectly for the children, but boy, that seems, if true, I mean, maybe the police just don't believe it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a it's a story. It's nothing much has changed in the story from the beginning.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. All the
you
searching
know,
they've done.
there's all kinds of interest, like people writing about it and writing about it, writing about it, but that doesn't seem to be going anywhere.
9,300 videos and 740 tips provided to the RCMP, and really, yeah, nothing. I mean, the suspicious part of this from the beginning was that the couple, Daniel Martell and Michaela Brooks Murray, stopped talking to each other the day after the children went missing, right? So that sort of bred suspicion from the beginning. The biological father, who's not seen the children for 3 years, no contact. Is that suspicious or not? It's anyway, it's not clear. So we'll see. We'll keep tabs on that a little bit, but yeah, it doesn't seem like the police are being completely forthcoming. I mean, media had to apply to get these documents. So yeah, maybe they're trying to put everyone in a false sense of security, and all of a sudden somebody texts something, the wrong thing to the wrong person, and the story breaks. So we'll keep an eye on it, I guess. Uh, all right, let's go right across the country. This Amy Hamm story. Amy Hamm, a British Columbia nurse, was investigated by the BC College of Nurses and Midwives, suspended a month, and fined $94,000 over comments that were quote unquote designed to elicit fear, contempt, and outrage against members of the transgender community. So, Paul, you see these stories now every once in a while where somebody is disciplined by whether it's Jordan Peterson for what he says or anybody else, disciplined by their professional oversight body. Every time you look at the story, you're like, okay, what did they actually say? That's never in the main story. You always have to dig around and like, oh, what did they actually say? Like, do you find that when you're watching for these stories?
I know that the details aren't there. This is the whole tyranny of the sort of for lack of a better term, the woke movement about misgendering people and not addressing them by their preferred pronouns. Which is considered illegal now to do that in a number of jurisdictions. It's insanity. I mean, maybe we should be teaching everyone how to be a psychic so that they could understand right away what a pronoun the person wants to be called by. I mean, it's insanity. It's a breakdown of communication and in many ways, a breakdown of the social contract we all have with each other. Uh,
There doesn't seem to be a lot of, I guess, uh, generosity in a sense of, or patience with others for saying things in a different way. Like these new standards that, always seem to come from the left, and they come very suddenly, and then all of a sudden, this new thing of, okay, we're supposed to go with they, them, and we're supposed actually, Amy Hamm says at work she was referring to people by their proper pronouns. It was just outside of work, she tweeted that this was metaphysical nonsense. I'd like to know how much of the public knows what metaphysical means. Called transgender women men, and helped pay for this I Love J.K. Rowling billboard that was up in Vancouver for a while. Like, that doesn't seem, anyway, it doesn't seem particularly serious. Why not just have a conversation about this very new concept that everybody's supposed to just accept?
Well, it's really sort of an offshoot of narcissism. When you're dealing with sort of with malignant narcissists and other sort of uh, people who are deeply affected by narcissism, they're always watching out for what you say and how you say it so that they will become miffed by it. It's like dealing with nitroglycerin. You can't do something out of outside their expectations, or they're going to react to it. And this is exactly what's going on here. This is like malignant narcissism that's been now codified, so that if you don't tell them what they want to hear, they are outraged, and now they have the law behind them to attack you for it. It's insanity.
Yeah, it puts Amy Hamm in a very difficult position. $94,000 is no joke, even for a nurse who's making good money. So, a 1 month suspension, hard for her to, you know, hard for her to earn, of course, if she's suspended. So, I don't know. That doesn't seem very fair. I know she's appealing it to the through the British Columbia court system. These disciplinary bodies, whether it's, medical or teachers or whatever. I mean, there's always they have their internal discipline, but you can always appeal it up into the court system. So that's what Amy Hamm will do, and we'll see if she gets any satisfaction at another level.
And for those who are wondering how Donald Trump and his get elected, it's because of things like that, reaction
100%,
to those things.
the backlash of people like, so Amy Hamm's lawyer says that this is mainstream views aligned with science and common sense. And that's a pretty good argument in my opinion. All right, another story that's caught some attention this week in legal circles and in Doug Ford circles and others. This Kawartha Lake. Uh, Paul, you're an Ontario guy. I should know where Kawartha Lake is. But you say it's in Eastern Ontario somewhere?
It's east of it's about an hour's drive east of Toronto, an hour and a half,
Okay.
sort of north of Peterborough, um, east of Barrie.
Okay. Well, so there was a homeowner whose home was invaded, and the homeowner has now been charged with assault. And so we don't really know. We don't know the facts, but boy, that hasn't stopped anybody from commenting on it. We hear, how is that possible? You should be able to defend yourself in your own home. And folks, that is absolutely true up to a point. It's like the general law of self-defense. You know, you can defend yourself, you can defend others, you can defend your property in a proportional manner, right? If somebody gives you a shove in the shoulder, you can't hit them in the head with a baseball bat. It's so everybody's outraged about this. Well, the homeowner should be able to do whatever they want. Well, we don't know the facts yet. What did the homeowner do? Maybe the homeowner knocked him unconscious and then continued to beat on the person. I mean, which would be completely unacceptable, right? Um, so we don't know a lot about this one yet, but I say the outrage machine didn't wait for that.
Yeah, I mean the police often, rarely do not charge a homeowner in this situation. And the homeowner, more often than not, gets off at the end of the day, but there's extreme cost. Um, but it never really addresses the fact that in Canada, you're on your own pretty well, and you have to wait for the police to respond. And the person, as I understand it, in this case, was a sort of a well-known criminal who's done these things before. It's that old conundrum. How do you keep these people either locked up or prevent them from doing this stuff? And there's no threat to them. They can break into somewhere and then they don't expect anyone to have a gun or anyone's going to take them on. And when they do, it works out to the advantage of the criminal.
Yeah, it does. It- that gets taken into account, by the way, too. There was a decision just this week out of Sydney on a murder case down there, and the person had claimed self-defense. Their motorbike had been stolen from out front of the house. They chased down the person that took it. They'd taken the spark plug out so it wouldn't start. And as they tackled the person, they're like, "Oh no, that's," and the person was like a super notorious criminal that he had had dealings with in jail. And so part of his defense was, "I just had to knock this guy out or I knew he was going to kill me." Um, well, the notoriety of the person you're facing can be a factor. I mean, he was found guilty anyway because he went too far with it, but maybe the same as this Kawartha Lake homeowner situation. All right, so we'll follow that. I'm sure there'll be more with that when the charges are laid and the person appears in court and some of those details emerge. We'll certainly be checking back in on that one. But Paul, you want to introduce the Catherine Gilliford situation for the audience?
Well, Catherine Galliford
Oh, sorry.
was she was one of the Mounties involved in the original harassment suits against the RCMP that ended up with about 3,000 former RCMP receiving settlements from the government. In Nova Scotia terms, Catherine Galliford was the former wife of Darren Campbell, who was one of the faces of the Nova Scotia mass casualty as the superintendent in charge. And they had divorced years earlier. The other tragedy in their life was that their son was convicted of murder and killing one of his friends in a heinous crime in British Columbia and is currently in prison. Galliford had been the spokesperson for the RCMP in BC way back when Robert Picton was arrested for killing all the women on the pig farm. And later she came forward and accused the RCMP of under investigating. And she was a very personable person and well spoken and the face of the RCMP in British Columbia. She sued, got her settlement, and then went into eventually I talked to her a couple of times when I was doing 22 murders. And the first conversation with her was pretty good. The second one, she couldn't even remember who I was. Her life deteriorated. She had liver cancer. She died this week.
Yeah.
Um, the important thing about Catherine Galliford dying is that it seems to have triggered a lot of response among people who are upset with the RCMP, especially former members, and one of them being Janet Merlo, who, along with Galliford, were sort of the leaders in this, along with Kathy Mansley from Nova Scotia, who we talked about before. And I think, I'll let you, if you got any comment, you can make it, but I want to read what Janet Merlo wrote yesterday.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Paul. That's I think that's important.
Well, Janet Merlo, who, I've tried to talk to over the years, and now we've sort of come to, after the writing of Anatomy of a Cover-Up, we've sort of got to know each other a little more. And she sent this note out yesterday on social media. And I think it's really interesting because she says, if you know of ongoing internal misconduct in the RCMP, go public. Reach out to a journalist. Show them your evidence. Expose it all. Names, dates, times, crimes. If you are afraid of retaliation, message me. I'll make it anonymous and post it so you'll never be identified. I will expose everything in the name of Catherine Galliford, Krista Carl, Pierre Lemaitre, Ron Francis, Margie Lau, and all that we have loved, respected, and lost. She sent out a picture of Catherine that she took at her house the previous week with her dog. She said, "Behind every victim of this continued abuse is a life and a story that would break your heart. From today on, I will post any internal misconduct that you want exposed. The RCMP has destroyed so many lives of those who did nothing more than tell the truth. The government is aware of it all and chooses to ignore it. It's time to start exposing everything and let the chips fall where they may. Message me with a very short two-line statement. Here's an example I have. I can prove MA was using RCMP taxpayer funds to buy RCMP equipment, roadside screening devices, and mouthpieces, and auctioning them off to private citizens, keeping the money. The proof? I have a copy of the RCMP emails to the police equipment supply asking them not to send the receipt to the detachment, but put it in the box with the equipment when they mail it to his house. This was reported but never investigated."
Yeah.
So this is not the only thing going on, because in the I also have other Mounties who have come forward as a group who are appealing to me to um, here's a note from someone else. Every organization has an Achilles heel. We will be able to topple these corrupt knuckleheads. It is all about strategy. The current downturn in the economy, inflation, and struggles of Canadians have set the stage for public outrage. When the public finds out about the blatant abuse of police cars for personal use, the unlimited sick leave fiasco, they will be fuming. We would greatly appreciate if you would keep digging into and even sharing the information about one, sick leave scam, two, the police car scam, where policemen are taking their cars home and using them as personal vehicles, overranking and empire building scam. Share them with your fellow journalists. Mass exposure is needed to wake up the public. We all have the same objective, to stop the abuse. So sharing the information with your competition is a good thing. It is a lot easier for you to talk openly than it is for us.
Right.
And then
Well, that's
finally, we have another person who put a similar thing, was Paul Derry, a former RCMP informant who's made a career out of this in Nova Scotia. And he's talking about exactly those same things about the coming forward, people coming forward and telling us the inside story with documents.
boy. You know, whatever the kind of movement, for change, this seems like the kind of way it starts, a sympathetic figure, somebody that was well liked, hard done by, and really didn't get justice in their lifetime. And all of a sudden, that can be used as a catalyst or a focal point for people to like, okay, well, I'm going to do that, I'm going to say my piece, something, whatever they've been holding in for months or years. And like, gee, well, now I'm going to join this movement. And now that other people are doing it, it makes it a lot easier for each person. Uh,
Well, in the years of doing this, Adam, I've never seen this sort of, it's like the holes are starting to form in the dike of silence, that things, people are so fed up. Meanwhile, you got the government of Nova Scotia saying we're going to hire the RCMP to police
Wow.
the entire province. What are they thinking?
It's kind of
Can
incredible,
they
right?
not see this?
The women's side of it. How are they going to, recruit more female officers? We saw a thing in the news, it was just, I think today, that the Canadian military has two female soldiers deployed to UN missions. This is the lowest. They used to have over 3,000 back in the 90s. Now they've got a few dozen, and only two of them were female. Like this is having a hard time
Well,
recruiting to these positions.
Well, in the note where people are talking about overranking and creating empire building and creating administrative jobs that are not policing, what the police are doing are hiring women and putting them in administrative jobs, then counting that against their overall total of police officers because they're having problems keeping women in policing because of the structure, the job, and all the accommodations, especially sick leave. Not just women, men and women are taking extraordinary sick leave, years of sick leave, and nothing is being done about it. There's a good story about it in the CBC this week
Yeah.
from Catherine Tunney. Then the other side of it is we have the RCMP union. Oh my God, National Police Federation, who we've written about. I wrote about an Anatomy of a Cover Up, advocating that non-Canadians be allowed to join the RCMP because they need policing. This is a way to fill their ranks because they can see the thing is falling apart and they're desperately trying to find people to become police officers because of the structure itself mitigates against having a strong police force, and government doesn't want to admit that.
Boy, the after the Mass Casualty Commission, the National Police Federation, I think, are still trying to rebuild their credibility, and I don't think they're there quite yet. The Baghdad Bob of PR operations in Canada here.
Well, the Brian Sauvé, the president of the president, as I showed in the book, made up stories
Yeah.
that the press bought. His own members should be outraged by this. But well, we're just protecting our members. No, he's not. He has a higher duty. And and he's not to be and it's not to be a shill for the force.
No, that's right. But Paul, all of these, so this is sort of early days in, I think, what could turn into a movement of sorts here with Catherine Galliford. And I think, people can publicize this through their own media, national media sources, but they can send it to us too. Like we'd be happy to talk about some of these stories that pop up across the country of abuse that people are seeing within the force, because I think it's important to shed light on it.
Oh, absolutely.
So people can bring that to us.
I'm here. We're open for business 24/7. Contact us any way you can. We're not that difficult to find.
Well, Paul
In
seems to
fact,
be.
our next guest is someone who found us.
Yes, so let's bring in Claude here, and we'll introduce him here in a second. Just let's admit him in. Good morning. Morning, Claude. We can see you.
Yeah, I hear you now.
Okay, great. Great. Look at that. We got Patrick Waugh over one shoulder and some other figures over the other one. Now we'll see.
Yes, sir.
May have to check back in on that one later.
Yeah.
And
Well,
you weren't a hit man, were you? That 3,000 hit club?
No, that's another one of my favorite sports players, Miguel Cabrera, but it's another story.
Well, he could hit.
Yeah.
yeah, right from day one there in the majors. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Claude. Well, I could talk Miggy Cabrera all day, but that's not exactly why we brought you in here.
No,
Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you coming on.
Can you
no
give us a
problem.
yeah, maybe you can give us a brief sort of description of your who you are and what you bring to the table.
Yeah. Okay. So, um, I was intrigued with this story, and I met Paul a while back about over this story. I've been following this right from day one. Um, the tragedy in Nova Scotia. So at the end of the day, after our discussion with Paul, we talked about undercover work and informants and agents, and I thought, I could bring something to the table with try to educate people how we got to where we are in Ontario and what little I know about the informants and agents and how that whole process works and how we're how I was trained and what I know about it. But my history, I go back. I started policing in Thunder Bay back in 1980, and it was because of that time I got I worked a few years in uniform, and then I got an opportunity to go to intelligence branch, and from that intelligence branch I had a chance to go work a little bit of undercover work within the city of Thunder Bay. And I did it without any training. We made a lot of mistakes. Um, and that goes, that's 84, 85. Um, the There was an agency called the Criminal Intelligence Service of Ontario that basically municipalities relied on the RCMP and the OPP to provide undercover operators for municipalities. So around 85, there was some meetings held with Criminal Intelligence Service Ontario, and a plan was developed to start their own program, their own undercover program, which was a municipally ran program. And myself and 11 others from the province happened to be the initial group of undercovers that went through that program. And basically, we started that program and we stayed with it. And not all operators stayed with it, but there was a few of us that lasted right through until the time that when almost to my retirement before I got out. I progressed. I worked like a lot of undercover jobs. I did a lot of undercover throughout all of Ontario.
You also worked for another police force, didn't you?
Yes, well, in 1988, I left Thunder Bay and I joined York Region.
Which is north of Toronto. It's part of the Toronto.
Yeah, so north of Steeles Avenue in Toronto. So big service. At the time, they were really, really expanding, and I was fortunate enough that I went back into intelligence because of my prior experience. And I stayed in the intelligence branch for a number of years, and I left for a short period of time, got promoted, and went to the drug squad, where once again we're right back doing the same things that we'd been doing for 15 years. And from there, I got an opportunity to go to the undercover program itself within Criminal Intelligence Service Ontario, and I managed the program for the province. We had a lot of undercovers. We had a lot of undercovers working throughout the province, but we also lent undercovers to other provinces. We sent them to New Brunswick, Newfoundland, different various files that where they couldn't get an operator that they felt was suitable for their job. They would come and look at our program and see what we had. And the program we had was pretty good, that we had everything computerized, and we were able to give them matches for what they needed for their undercover work. And
So
that's
Claude,
basically,
would that be for RCMP jurisdictions or municipal jurisdictions in those provinces?
yeah. So municipal jurisdictions in those provinces, it would
Okay.
be that would come from a service specific, like whether it was the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary or one of the other services. They could make a request through Criminal Intelligence Service Newfoundland, which would send it to us, and then we would try to facilitate them. Now, having said that, they're on the hook. They're on the hook for a lot of the financial commitment to that.
Well,
But
for
but for
sure. Yeah.
most,
So what do you know about the RCMP? That getting into this story, the RCMP, it's past with undercover and it's present. Like how do you read that?
so in so we owe a lot to the RCMP on how undercover work was conducted in this province. When we started our program in the province, we utilized the RCMP model. We modeled our undercover training after theirs. The RCMP, I think and these are my opinions, they would contract themselves out to services. And that makes it very scary, because what happens is a service that is contracted out will get you a result, whether they have a result or not. Once they build you for $100,000 in work, they're really reluctant to let, if you don't have it, you don't have it. That's the way we look at it in the undercover world. We move on to the next one. But if you had someone paying you thousands of dollars in bills, you want to give them a result. And then as a result, there are cases where there's been bad case law because of it. So
Go ahead.
Curious, couple of things. One, it strikes me that Thunder Bay might be a good sort of launching pad or training ground for policing. I just having gone through there, driven through there to go get out west, it seems like a hub for Ontario and maybe for some of the illegal traffic going back and forth. But the second one I was going to ask is about training and what's involved, or how long does it take to train somebody to do effective undercover work?
when I first started, in undercover work, there was really, hey, you just followed the lead of someone else. But that progressed, and once CISO started their course, our first course was very, I would say, lacking. It was a bunch of people that really didn't have the expertise to train people. But we got through it, and then it's no different than any other place of work. Everything evolves and it gets better. And as people go through the program's been around now for 40 years, so it's gotten better over the years, and the training is better. We owe a lot to some people that really dedicated themselves to putting a program in place that was probably top notch. As a matter of fact, I think the municipal program, Toronto was doing undercover work well before CISO ever started. But now, before I left anyway, and that's been 15 years already, Toronto was already bought into the CISO program and put their officers through our training. And yeah, so I think it's just an evolution of how things are done. It got better as things went. Training takes, there's multiple steps in the CISO program. There's 5 phases of the training, so it takes a while. It takes, before you, and then like any other course, and you go through law. It doesn't make you a lawyer until you are in front of the bench, right? And that's where you learn. And
you've got to
no
do it.
different than any other job, right?
Yeah. You learn through mistakes. You get experience through making mistakes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In your opinion, Claude, what is the situation with the RCMP on undercover work now? Good, bad, or otherwise? I mean,
I think they have. I think that all people that are involved in the undercover world they try to do the best they can. I don't think it's when a file falls apart, I don't think it's the undercover operator per se. It can be the investigation. It can be the person that's handling. It can be the person that's setting things up that makes things go south. It's not really the undercover gets brought in from another jurisdiction or another province or another, in the RCMP world, they'll bring a guy from Vancouver to work anywhere in the country. So it's hard to blame that person for how things go. Having said that, he has some he has some responsibility also.
So, go ahead, Paul.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, so I was just gonna say if if you've been watching the mass casualty commission proceedings and thoughts on I guess thoughts on how if there's any indications of an undercover operation from what you've observed. And I guess maybe a general question, like do you see situations in undercover work where, the it's getting close to an arrest, seems like the riskiest time in a sense for potentially revealing the undercover officer's identity as things get close. Uh, Maybe just talk about that kind of time in an investigation just prior to an actual arrest being made.
Yeah, I could I could go on for days on how these things play out. It's not, it's sometimes they develop real quick, and you're forced into making an arrest, right? If you learn that there's going to be another serious crime committed, and you report that, I would put it to you that it would necessitate an arrest and a conclusion of what you're up to. In what I see in the mass casualty event, I don't see it as so much of an undercover job. I see it as and not as a policeman undercover. There is undercover possibly that Paul alludes to, and the book alludes to, in the mass casualty, and all things point that Gabriel Wortman could have been an agent. Remember,
Why an agent, and why an agent, not an informant?
okay, so the way I was taught in the world of agents undercover, when it comes to sources of information for the police, there's three types of areas where they get information. They get it from sources, they get it from informants, and they get it from agents. So a source would be somebody that is a casual acquaintance to a police officer who provides occasional information about whatever. Might not be criminal, might be just it might be just a street. Who knows? An informant is someone that would provide information to a police officer on an ongoing basis without being directed by a police officer. An agent is somebody that is directed and takes active part in an investigation. These people are not protected. And an informant, you don't have to reveal his identity, but an agent, if push comes to shove, when a file comes to a conclusion, if that person is a key witness, that person will get identified, and their life, not their life, but their work life is essentially finished. Does that make anything clear as far as the difference between an informant and an agent? An informant is a protected person. Don't have to reveal that source.
So if Gabriel Wortman was an agent, at the end of the day, that would have to be revealed.
It's not. They're not always revealed. If I can give you an example. If a file comes to a conclusion and the police are able to manage a guilty plea or a withdrawal, then you have to identify the person. But if there's a trial and that person is a witness to it, to the event, that person has to go into disclosure and has to come and testify. And when after their testimony, they're done. I mean, I could show you an example of there's a book. I don't know if anybody reads this kind of stuff, but there's a book called The Weasel, and it was an informant in Toronto. Not an informant, he became an agent, and he worked exclusively with the Ontario Provincial Police for a long time until there was a case where he had to testify, and then his career was finished.
I know with an informant code, like the Crown prosecutor will do whatever they'll drop charges. If it looks like they're getting to the point where too much information needs to be revealed in order to justify the charges and support the case, if they get to that point where the information is going to reveal the informant's name, they'll just drop the charge. And
100%.
you gotta protect the informant, but the agents don't get that kind of treatment, I guess.
No, and the thing is with the agent, remember they're being paid, right? And they're in many cases on the big cases, they're getting paid substantial money.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash that you could pick up at a Brinks.
And then with new identity and new locations, and I mean, witness protection is nothing comes for free and nothing is cheap.
Yeah.
So what so you think, just to reiterate, you think there's a possibility that Wortman was an agent?
The possibilities are endless. Yes, he could have been an agent. He could have, to what degree, where he was working, what he was doing. There is so much that you have revealed in your book about New Brunswick and Nova Scotia and bikers and things of that nature, that who knows. But once it's very difficult to find out, to pinpoint what he was doing or who he was working for. You probably have a better understanding of that than I do, but I see him as a potential.
But the RCMP has denied it. They said we have no evidence that he worked for us.
Yeah, and then the RCMP that made that statement, that could be actually true. Those people may not know.
So
When it comes to agents, it's a very secret world, and there's only a handful of people that would even be aware. The less people, the better.
yeah, and so the wrong person may not be aware, and they could disclose documents, unknowingly revealing somebody's identity. Uh, some risks there, I suppose. But you're thinking of actual, risks internal to the police organization. You don't want too many people being aware of a person being an agent just for the risk of leaks.
It's not just the leaks. It's just that deniability, it makes it easy, right?
Yeah.
If you don't know something, it makes it easy. We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't have that information.
I think one of the things we talked about before, there is a difference though in the way agents are handled and informants are handled in municipal police forces, OPP, Sûreté, and the RCMP. I think the RCMP, it's generally agreed from what I know that more people know about agents inside the RCMP than would be the case in the other police forces.
Possible. I don't know how they're structured. I do know that so if you went back 50 years in Ontario, you would have detectives that had informants, and they had sources, and they had people working for them, but nobody knew about them, right? And there was no file, there was no so that got developed also. Let's like undercover work got developed, but so did informant files get developed. Then there was a program put in place that informants and agents are property of the police service. They're not property of the officer. So then that had to be coordinated into having someone that managed that file. But it's limited. There's only a small group of people, even within a police service, that would know who those people are in that file. They're all sorted by name, by numbers.
Just a broad question, in I guess the 30, 40 years, since the 80s, what what would you say are the major changes that technology has brought on in terms of undercover work? Just seems like social media, the online world, finding people's photographs from when they were in their early 20s, and being able to hide somebody might be more difficult now.
It is tough because um, police officers have a social life also, right? Long before they get into police work. And even after they get into police work, when they first start, it's not uncommon for somebody to post pictures of themselves in uniform online. Um, when I was in the program, we tried our best to do a thorough search, but we're not as savvy as some of the hackers that are out there either. And so, yeah, there's a lot of technical, logical issues that you have to worry about. And you have to worry about people exposing themselves, let alone somebody exposing you.
Look at the old spy movies, the old early, Pierce Brosnan, James Bond movies, right? Where they just take a picture of him and you're like, oh, that's a British spy and blah, blah, blah. Like anybody could do that now.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know it's quite frightening, and things like everything. I look at undercover work as being yes, it's an expensive venture, but if you, in light of what else goes on with policing and investigating major crimes, wiretaps are very, very hugely expensive, and they're not very successful. Everybody's got 5 throwdown phones. You use one phone one day, use another phone another day. Now you have to have lines up on everything. There's thousands and thousands, maybe millions of dollars to run a file with no guarantee.
I'd
Yeah.
like to come back to that sometime in the future at another visit. We're running out of time here right now, but one of the things we talked about previously um, was about the lack of accountability after what happened in Nova Scotia. And this week we've seen the Uvalde case in Texas has come back to light where, two people out of that horrible situation, two police officers were sort of held accountable to some degree, and the other 300 were on scene were let go. In Nova Scotia, it seems nobody was held accountable. What do you think about that?
I think it personally, that's disturbing. Um, I've always felt um, that we should hold people accountable, and that's not at the bottom of the chain to the top of the chain. Um, Having listened to the reporting that was done, listening to um, press releases, to testimony, to as a frontline officer, if I was from Truro, I would be disgusted with not being told what was going on and not given the heads up. Let alone the people. It starts there without the people being notified. Somebody should have been held accountable for that.
You know how little accountability there was. I just noticed today that do you remember Chief Superintendent Chris Leather, who he was a York Region guy. You would have probably known him in York Region. Did you know Chris Leather?
I worked alongside Chris for a bit.
So Chris Leather was the chief superintendent, the crops officer, criminal operations officer in Nova Scotia when the massacres happened. Afterwards, he was sent to Ottawa for 2 years. And you know what he's doing now?
No,
He's the chief criminal operations officer for federal services in Ontario.
well,
So did
as
all
well,
right for himself.
yeah, as well, it's well played. Um, yeah, it's hard to imagine that could happen. I don't know. Um, Yeah, I mean, it comes right down from the top, though. It's not, I mean, yes, he's very high up there, but somebody above him made that decision.
For sure. Well, the government makes the decisions. I mean, the Nova Scotia government, in spite of everything, has said we want the RCMP to be the major police force in Nova Scotia, even in some of the municipalities. It seems like insanity to me after all that's gone on, the lack of accountability. But who are we?
Yeah. Seems like some failing up going on. You know,
Is there any last thing you'd like to talk about, Claude?
Um, when that last comment you made, I thought that during the Mass Casualty Commission, I think the chief of Halifax, Dan Kinsella, I think he told the commission that there would have been a provincial service would have been able to fly. They would have been able to get that to go. I don't see it as a big thing to um, take over the RCMP jurisdictions that there certainly could have been a provincial service that went in there and took over. I mean, they've done it in Cape Breton.
yeah. Yeah, there's lots of municipal forces in Nova Scotia that are feeling the same way, I think, right now.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Nice to have somebody with experience in undercover work and working with agents and informants on with and sharing your expertise. I'll have to get you back on sometime. Like you say, we could talk about this stuff for a long time. There's always interesting cases, and I'm sure you have some stories to tell that you could scrub the names out, I guess,
Yeah.
and tell us a few stories as well.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much again, and yeah, we'll get you back on here before very long, I'm sure.
Nice chatting with you.
Okay, thanks again.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Claude.
Bye.
Well, Paul, that was interesting. So I think he enjoyed your book.
Oh, I'm glad he did.
Yeah, I think it sounded like without having the background himself, I think he was a little, he didn't want to give 100% of an endorsement of it, but I think he's on board with your conclusions, with our conclusions about all this.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite
That's good to
clear
hear.
that, the RCM, just by what they did and didn't do, more importantly, about what they didn't do,
Yeah,
paints the picture that Wortman had to be an agent and makes sense of everything else they did. And then there's the other thing that we didn't get into this week, but who killed Corey Ellison? We
yeah,
know it was you guys.
yeah. That's it, man. That's it. So, yeah, interesting. Like an agent run out of New Brunswick RCMP, perhaps, and getting down to the wire, and maybe about to make an arrest. About something was about to happen. And it was a sensitive time. I mean, anyway, it sounded like that Claude was, supports that broad theory. So
That's
we
why
hear
we
you
had him
coming.
on. And I think we
Yeah,
have other people in the wings who are waiting to come on who have are following our show, and it's very encouraging to see the response we're getting right across the country. Um, as I said, I'd hope to have Janet Merlo on sometime in the future, maybe later in September, and a bunch of other people. And next week, hopefully, we have Tom Juby to go back in time and look at how a cover up is conducted in plain sight. And this time we're going to deal with what Tom Juby thinks happened with Swiss Air 111 and the crash on September 3rd, 1998.
yeah, yeah. So that's going to be interesting. So look forward to that conversation, and hope everybody enjoyed our conversations today, and lots of stories to cover. So we'll be back next week. Hopefully with Tom Juby, we'll announce that as soon as we confirm him. So yeah, that's great. All right, Paul, anything on the week ahead otherwise?
No, that's it. More of the same. There's lots going on. I mean, I'm just trying to keep up with all the different things that go. Well, I'll leave that to another week.
All right.
The last thing. who killed Corey Ellison. Remember, let's
Okay.
keep hunting.
We'll keep that, and any tips, bring it to us. And yeah, otherwise, thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See you next week. Bye bye.